Welcome, dear water friends among you. Today, in our series Natural Medicine, I have a very special guest on the subject of water, hexagonality. What possibilities we have in the water to bind toxins to optimally supply our cells, and so on. And my guest is connected from Mallorca. Unfortunately, he can't be here today, but I'm still very happy to see him. Pierre Zerberg. Hello, Pierre.
Hello.
You are now connected directly here, and your hobby horse topic really is the subject of water, and especially when it comes to the subject of hexagonal water. If I listen to some voices from the, let's say, mainstream, then it's often referred to as esotericism or nonsense. Now, I'm glad I have you here as an expert. Now, when I talk about hexagonal water in seminars, there are always one or the other interjections on this subject. And I'm happy now if you tell me some answers about it.
Yeah. What's the deal with hexagonal water? Well, water has always been examined all over the world, and then from 1960, things really started. There's a high mountain part in Pakistan that's called Hunza. In this high mountain part, people grow extremely old. And on average, there's talk of 120 years on average. Well, one has to see whether this can be proven through birth certificates, but they simply grow extremely old with the best vitality. And then in 1960, investigations began. Is it the mountain air? Or what is it? And then they just came to the conclusion, and from 1969 it was only possible to measure the structures, that it was basically due to the glacier water. This fresh glacier water, what they drink daily. It's swirled endlessly, absorbs minerals, and is exposed to the sun's rays. And the highlight was, from 1969 onwards, it was really possible to measure that this water has hexagonal structures. Then other scientists got on board, first and foremost a Korean, Dr. Yon, and when you look at his papers, it's amazing to read what hexagonal water does in the body. In terms of its antioxidant, it's anti-inflammatory, it's cell-penetrating. It starts with the fact that the normal water that we get today is not cell-penetrating at all because of the bipolarity of the H2O molecules. 20, 35, 30 water molecules always connect, and they are then too big in this association as a cluster to get through the small openings in the cells called aquaporins. In order for them to get into the cell at all, the body first has to expend energy to split up these clusters. Hexagonal water is completely different. It gets everywhere. This is ingeniously cell-penetrating and fulfills a very important task of water, optimal as a solvent, to transport nutrients, but also transport toxins, foreign matter and consumables away. And then Dr. Gerald Pollack came into play next, so to speak. He was an American, and he then called this water, or called the state of this water, the fourth phase of water. So the fourth state of matter. Now we've determined ice and steam, and that's the fourth phase, and it's relatively stable. With normal water, H2O, it's like that. It's so unstable that the H2O molecules exchange partners billions of times per second. So there's a coming and going, but billions of times. And this hexagonal water is crystalline-like. Although it is liquid, it is relatively stable. And hexagonal comes from the Greek, from hexa, meaning six, and we have, you can imagine it like a honeycomb, the structure of this water. So like a hexagonal base shape, and they connect next to each other with millions of those. So it's like honeycomb layers. And when you have this water in your body, millions of layers of it form. And Pollack called that the fourth phase of water. And then he found out so much more about it. It's just phenomenal.
It is also important for viewers to know that if I now take a water in a treatment plant, then it's transported through pipes, so this structure does not then arise at all, but then it comes to these...
Well, it also breaks if we pump about 100 metres or more. The hexagonal structure is broken.
OK, I wanted to ask that too.
Now, our original drinking water in evolution was hexagonal. That was fresh spring water or just down from the mountains. So our original drinking water, what we got during evolution, so that we could develop as well as we are today, was hexagonal water, but that doesn't really exist anymore. It's unbelievable how few people even know this term hexagonality. I've often found that this is the case even with doctors. They don't even know what I'm talking about.
It's somehow being ridiculed right away. Well, they don't deal with it scientifically at all. They say right away, well, that's kind of nonsense. Like not going with science. I mean, there are always new findings on the subject of water, or experiments with plants and so on, where we see exactly how the vibration and even the word responds to it. And how do you get your water into a hexagonal structure?
Well, I've prepared a small video. Maybe we can watch it.
Yes, let's take a look. So what is that exactly?
That's the handheld probe from a device called Cell Tuner. And this is based on a basic invention by Nikola Tesla. Albert Einstein himself said that he was the most intelligent person in the world, and that was the greatest scientific genius of all time. And the basic technology is a scalar wave that Tesla discovered. Before Tesla, it was assumed that there was only one electromagnetic wave, called Hertzian wave, which is what is used in radio signals. Tesla figured out there was a second one. It has no matter and is a longitudinal wave, so it doesn't oscillate like that, but oscillates in the direction of flow, but without matter. And onto such a wave, I can add information to it, like I modulate information on the radio. And I have a frequency that is the connection, the carrier frequency. I tune it in, then I'm connected to it, but I don't hear this frequency, but the information that is modulated on it. That's how radio works. And with this scalar wave, I can not only have a portfolio of infinite information frequencies modulated on it, I can also add pure energy on it. That means I can transmit electrical energy wirelessly. And the portfolio of information frequencies plus pulses of energy, plus the scalar wave itself, causes the water to become structured. Namely structured hexagonally. We're depicting, so to speak, the water that the people in Hunza are drinking up there. And what's super cool about this hand probe now, I'll not only make the drinking water hexagonal by 5-minute irradiation, when I go to the body, to the right places, so where I have the most bodily fluids or where there's the most flow, carotid arteries, wrist arteries on the groin, or here in front, where the lymphatic system primarily runs through, also makes all bodily fluids hexagonal and have all these multiple benefits from hexagonality throughout the body. And that's fantastic. From lowering blood pressure, let's say there is no aspect regarding health that is not being improved, whether it's energy, the immune system, the function of the mitochondria, whether it's detoxification, purification, and everywhere today there's physical or biochemical, quantum physical evidence why it is like that. That's all proven today. And anyone who claims otherwise should just try to look at the publicly available sources and studies.
Okay, and how often do you use that now to get your body into this hexagonal structure? How can I imagine that? How is it used, this probe?
Well, you have the hand probe we saw earlier, so you irradiate the water. It should be pure water, good water, after reverse osmosis or distillation, whatever, and then I irradiate the water, drink that. I really do that every day. You have to say that. I'm not a water drinker at all. Not at all. So I used to make an effort to drink 2 glasses of water a day, and then the rest was coffee, tea, or whatever. Today it's like this. Today I drink 10, 12 of these glasses all day, and people who come to me for the first time get this water. I recently had a woman there who, believe it or not, drank 15 glasses of water in 2 hours. Why? Because the other water that she had before didn't get into the cells at all. She was completely dehydrated. Now you just have to know how important the water supply is. The human body is made up of 99% water molecules. Only every 100th is not a water molecule. So that might be a protein, muscle protein with 1 million atoms. So it's heavier, but when I look at evolution now, when a baby's born, 90% of its weight is water. A healthy adult, between male and female, this differs a bit, because the female has a bit more fat cells, between 65 and 70%. And the older and the sicker and the less vital I am, the lower my water content. It then goes down to 50% or less. And then what do I have to do when I know that 99% of a body are water molecules? Well, then I have to make sure that I have the best possible water in my body. And this water has a few other incredible properties. In fact, I said it's honeycomb-like and is stable. And then millions of layers of these honeycomb layers form. And in a hydrophilic environment, which is always the case with humans, so water-friendly environments, these layers are always negatively charged. And in these layers, no atom, no molecule, no virus, no bacterium, nothing can stay and pushed aside, as well as what we now have in terms of viruses and so on that's pushed aside and flushed out via the lymphatic system, via urine, via sweat, or, well, devil knows what. And these layers are called exclusion zones. Also comes from Gerald Pollack, because nothing else can dissolve and stay there. So best detoxification, purification in the whole body, and we know today that almost all diseases or inflammations are based on deposits of toxins or acidic molecules that have been stored, or especially in the connective tissue, that's the transit route for everything. That's where our rubbish dump is, so to speak. It accumulates there and then leads to fibroids, to cysts, to the worst case of tumours, and I can get rid of that ideally. And this is one aspect of hexagonal water, for example.
Is there a guideline on how much water to drink? The question keeps coming up, but do you say that with hexagonal water, do we need more or less? What is your experience?
It's super cell penetrating if you drink between 2 and 3 litres a day, depending on your size, of course. If I have physical exertion, it's even more, but it should also be less if I have a lot of fruit and have liquids through that. So in superfruit, there are also a lot of hexagonal structures, and in plants. So super fresh stuff, there's a lot of hexagonal liquid in there too. Now, one more point is, so I have a high cell penetration in relation to normal water. I have a super transport function, solvent to nutrients and removal of consumables. And then there's another aspect that is extremely interesting, and that's the antioxidant aspect. The fact is that today, due to all the environmental signals and everything that happens there, is a lot of stress, and especially at this time, fear is nothing but stress. We have an insane amount of free radicals, and we have hyperacidity in the whole body. That's the cause of almost everything. And it's said today that about 85% of all Europeans are acidic. Now, I have to do something about it. Basic nutrition is certainly a very important measure, but hexagonal water is extremely helpful. Not because the water itself is basic, because this is neutralised by the stomach acid. That doesn't make much of a difference, but hexagonal water survives stomach acid. It's stable enough in terms of its structure, and this hexagonal water is negatively charged from the layers, and what constitutes the acid is in the H3O plus ions. They're positively charged. They're then neutralised. I can solve the over-acidification with hexagonal water. Only with basic water it doesn't work.
Okay, I find that interesting now. Because especially with the acid-base balance, one also speaks of acidic water, so carbonic acid.
Yeah, that should be avoided.
Yes, okay, that's right then. And if you now have basic water what has a basic pH, you say it doesn't really matter?
It doesn't really do much because it's neutralised by the stomach acid. And where it should actually go, in the bloodstream, it doesn't even get there. We have about 10, 12 different pH levels in the body. The crucial pH value we always talk about is measured in the wide blood vessels. In the capillaries, it's different again. In the wide blood vessels, there we should have a pH of 7.4, 7.5. And I can drink water with a pH of 9 on a weekly basis, and it won't do much. I must have hexagonal water where the positive H3O plus ions are neutralised by the negative charge. This is such an important aspect. Now, another important aspect is due to these environmental signals, we have a lot of toxins, and due to 4G, 5G, electric smog and all that crap, we have an incredible amount of free radical attacks, incredibly much. Someone calculated it once, I don't know, but it's definitely true in terms of magnitude, that the number of times free radicals attack our cells in a day is a 10 with 18 zeros, okay? Then a glass of orange juice won't do me much good. I have to come with completely different weapons. And I don't use weapons that are artificial, but I take the most natural weapon that nature made available, namely our original drinking water. And that's hexagonal water. And now comes the trick. A couple of super resourceful scientists came up with it. First Pollack and then later Flanagan. By the way, Dr. Patrick Flanagan has been considered as the reincarnation of Tesla, so he's also an unbelievable genius. And he came up with it, basically in the hexagonal structure. The atoms can share the electrons in this hexagonal structure. I have one less hydrogen atom, so I have more oxygen. And the biochemical formula of hexagonal water is not H2O, but H3O2. So I have more oxygen in proportion, so it's oxygen-rich. And I have one less hydrogen atom in the overall structure. And then Flanagan said, I have a hydrogen with additional free electrons. He called it active hydrogen at the time. As I've said before, other scientists don't agree, but what is completely clear throughout all sciences, including Professor Schwab, is this so-called Mesomeric Effect. That means below and above these hexagonal water layers, an electron plasma is formed of trillions of free electrons, and they neutralize trillions of free radicals. And that has another huge advantage. For example, if I take antioxidants, I have a neutral molecule. And now comes a free radical that desperately needs an electron. Now it steals an electron from the neutral molecule. What's happening? The neutral molecule is now missing an electron. It becomes a free radical itself. And the cascade continues with free radicals. I can only solve that by free, delocalized electrons. And now comes a point where this also plays a role in plants, phytochemicals, such as polyphenols. I take a look at the structure. They all have a benzene ring in the structure. And the benzene ring is a hexagonal structure, not with hydrogen and oxygen atoms, but with carbon atoms. And then exactly the same thing happens. The carbon atoms can share electrons, and I have free delocalized electrons. And therefore these polyphenols, turmeric is the prime example, have such incredible antioxidant effects.
But in connection with this hexagonal structure,
you also have to look, it was also looked at the atoms. For example, hydrogen has an atomic hexagonal structure. Nitrogen has one too. Carbon has one too. For some reason, oxygen doesn't. So there is your thread. Or, for example, our amino acids that make up DNA. All 4 amino acids have this benzene ring with this hexagonal carbon structure. So it's the same there. Or these superactive ingredients, the fullerenes today, these C60 molecules, have a few pentagons, but most of them are also hexagonal. So the substances that are most important to humans always have to do with hexagonality.
It also brings order. I also had a nice cognition interview. If you are a mess inside, then the structures are not in order. So the mind, or negative thoughts, or the intestinal flora, and so on. And if an orderly structure comes from the outside, then everything will be in order again from the inside.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. But you also have to know, for example, thoughts are also electromagnetic waves. What do I do with my thoughts when I'm negative and stressed? I destroy the hexagonal structure with stress. You have to know that. And then it's like this. Healthy cells and healthy DNA are always surrounded by hexagonally structured water. Disease cells, a cancer cell, or for example, where we find diabetes, the cells usually always have unstructured left-spinning water instead of right-spinning hexagonal water. And this hexagonal water has a few other aspects that are actually unbelievable. It can store and absorb 3 times more energy than normal water and deliver it to the cells. But there are 3 levels of action where, with this hexagonal water, additional energy is produced in the body. The first level is what's called like a nature battery. I got these hexagonal honeycomb layers. They're always negatively charged in the body. The surface water around is positively charged. What do I have? I have the basic structure of a battery. I say natural battery. Now I just need vibrations or frequencies to turn on this battery. What is it? Sunlight. That's why you should go out into the sun. It's really easy. You can also use it to strengthen your immune system. So this is the first level of action where I generate additional energy. The second is even more ingenious. You have to call yourself crazy if you say that, but it is perpetuum mobile in a hexagonal cell environment. In this water, the following happens. This is called water splitting. The H2O or H3O2 are split by supplying energy into the basic atomic structure of hydrogen and oxygen as a gas. So I have to put some energy into it to get there. Now, they combine again to form water, the molecule of water, no longer a gas form. Now the highlight is this reconnection is then called the master reaction. More energy is released in the master reaction, then I need to invest in a hexagonal environment to split it. I have a perpetuum mobile on the subject of energy production in the body. But this is only possible in a hexagonal environment. This is the basic requirement.
What's in it for me then? So as a human being, how do I feel that? What does all this have an impact on this battery that I'm igniting with the sun?
Illness is defined as an absence of energy. Health is defined as energy flow and cellular communication. I can only have good cellular communication in a hexagonal environment. The mitochondria work in a different way. The over-acidification is gone. Flow rates are good. The photons for cell communication can dock better. And I just wanted to come back. There is a third level of action. That's when it gets really incredible, and you'll probably be declared crazy, but that is the highest science. There is a scientist in Germany, I'll make the bet that he's one of the 3 most intelligent people in the world, not only in Europe. This is Dr. Ulrich Wonka, who's written books, very difficult stuff. And then he writes an edition, and that's how the whole book goes. These free electrons that we have in these plasmas, via microtubules, which are like nanotubes, that make up the cytoskeleton of cells, they can tunnel into dark energy. We know from NASA what makes up the universe. 4% is what we see and what we can detect with our technology. And 96% is dark energy, dark matter. We know it exists. And we know today that there is infinite energy information potential. And the electrons are the mediators. Electrons, it's like that. Sometimes they are waves, sometimes they're particles, sometimes they disappear completely. You know that. And when they're all gone, they're sort of in dark energy or dark matter. Take energy from there like a taxi and bring it back into the body. You have to imagine this, and I can only do all this with hexagonal water. And then experiments were carried out with animals. It works similarly with plants. They have a completely different growth, a completely different resistance to disease, to drought. They have deeper roots and all that. But it's the same with animals. It's the same with animals. It works like that everywhere. It's a very simple measure. We just have to go back to the original drinking water of evolution, and that is hexagonal water. And I can do that in my studio with this handheld probe from the Cell Tuner. And if I hold it to the body, I still create hexagonal structures in my body. And 99% of all molecules in my body are water molecules. Can it be any easier for vitality and health? I don't think so. But it's not discussed. I don't understand.
That's why we have you here today. Luckily, we talk about it, and thank you for all the valuable information.
There's so much more to say, but we'll have to leave it at that.
We are always a bit limited in time to our structure. But if you want to find out more now about this cell tuner, where can I get information?
At QuantiSana.ch on the website. There are also special papers on hexagonal water and many other things.
Great. Really interesting, even though I actually always got an F in chemistry and with all the numbers, but still super interesting and exciting. And thank you for the insight, and I'm looking forward to more interviews.
Thank you too.
Thank you. See you then. Bye. To all the water fans today who watched, and above all to the chemistry fans, it's of course also exciting to hear all these structures again from an expert. I hope you were able to take something away from this valuable interview, and thank you for watching. See you. Bye-bye.